We're here today with Denise Resnik, who's doing some amazing work out in Arizona, helping people in the autism community with a bunch of things she's done. So let's explore her story. How are you today, Denise?
I'm doing well, thank you, John.
You've been a trailblazer for a few decades now, since your son was diagnosed at 2 years old with autism. You've made yourself a champion, and from what I can tell, you're having an amazing impact on a lot of people. Tell us about the early days of Matt's diagnosis. What caused you to question whether or not there were some disabilities involved, and what happened from that point?
In 1993, when he was 2 years old, we were told to love, accept, and plan to institutionalize him because that's what would be best for him and for our family. We actually took him to the audiologist because we thought maybe he was losing his hearing. He was no longer responding to his name. And his hearing was just fine. And it took us a little while to get that diagnosis. I wanted to deny it, but my mother gave me the book by Catherine Maurice, Let Me Hear Your Voice. And it took me only the first few pages to realize that that's exactly what our son had, was autism. And at the time, we were also told that he might be mentally retarded. That's the words that they used. And our son is limited on his expressive and receptive communication, and he is an amazing human being. We just celebrated his 34th birthday this month. He's never done a mean thing to anyone in his entire life. He is he'll solve triple-digit multiplication problems instantly, and he loves being productive and being involved in the community and having fun.
So you get this diagnosis and you think, this is silly. There's no way that this beautiful young boy is going to be institutionalized. We're going to find other ways to work with him. Your background was in real estate development?
That's right. So my first job right out of Arizona State University was working for the Del Webb Corporation, which back then was the granddaddy of senior housing. And that's, the vision for where retirees would live. Mm-hmm. And so real estate community development is where I started. At the age of 25, I formed my own marketing and communications firm focused on real estate and community development.
You're a pioneer. Not too many women were setting up their own businesses then.
Yeah, well, what I saw is that we were hiring people just like me. And why wouldn't I go outside the corporation to try to serve those business interests? Mm-hmm. And it was also at a time that I wanted to start my family. I thought having my own business would give me a little more flexibility.
Ha, ha,
ha. There are a few more demands on us as entrepreneurs.
So when you put in for maternity leave, what did you say?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. And so many stories of trying to manage it all. 2 young kids. Our daughter is just 17 months older than our son, Matthew, who has autism. And so but I wanted it all, and I was willing to work really hard. There were a few mistakes along the way, like, trying to boil at that time the baby nipples on the stove, because I, of course, wanted to sanitize them while I was working in my back office, and forgetting about them and opening the door to a home that was filled with soot and later filled with firemen. So, there are a few lessons that I learned along the way, but I never burned down the house. And I'm pleased to report.
Is this how you measure accomplishments? You never burned down the house?
Yeah. Well, really, accomplishment is having 2 beautiful children and a husband who I love and who still, makes me laugh after 41 years.
He still puts up with you?
He does. And this mishigas, I don't know if you're familiar with that term of craziness.
Of course I am.
Of course you are. So this mishigas of wanting to have it all, and also making sure that we get to pursue our dreams in our lifetimes, and to make sure, in Matt's case, that Rob and I have our fingerprints all over what we want for our son, Matt, and for others like him, in terms of helping him build a life and building a community.
So I hear the real estate development background. Tell us about the arc of your professional career from 1993 on.
I continued on with my marketing and communications firm, but I also created the business of Matthew. of having therapists in our home, turning our home into a therapy center. Every therapy, behavioral analysis of music therapy, art therapy, anything that could get through to this young, beautiful man and boy, and also to not be totally disruptive for the family, because our daughter, was young, and we wanted those to be her play areas too. In 1997, after meeting with parents and creating parent support groups, we established the Southwest Autism Research and Resource Center. But real estate was front and center back then. And by 1999, even had a planned community development, 40 acres, that a corporation was going to gift us to develop such a property. But we needed to take more time. We couldn't do that right away. And so for the next 10 years, we evaluated more than 100 properties across the country, because we were going to bring the model back here to Phoenix. And we found some really good things, Jim, and we published those in a 2009 study called Opening Doors. But we didn't find what we were looking for, which was something that was replicable and scalable and both financially and operationally sustainable. So that's where we set our sights. And then by 2012, we created a sister nonprofit. That's First Place. And then from then, we've been developing properties. We actually have developed 3 properties for people with autism and intellectual and developmental disabilities. And it's not just, 4 walls of a home. It's also been as a community developer.
Are those 3 properties in Arizona?
They are. 2 of them are in collaboration with the Foundation for Senior Living, and beautiful expressions of multi-generational living and how we truly complement each other's skills and needs and
interests. I've always thought that it was a good idea. I didn't know anyone's done it.
And what's so beautiful about it is that the residents in these 2 properties that were made possible by some government funding were very intentional in making sure that the seniors who are going to live there wanted to live in a mixed property. And many times we heard from those individuals that they didn't want to live with all old people. They didn't want to hear about their doctor's appointments and their health concerns. And it has added so much spirit and interest to building a community. And
I love that. Tell me about the community with the seniors, or one of the 2. Tell me about them.
One of them.
How big is it? How many people live there? What's the housing style? What else goes on there?
So it's celebrating its 10-year anniversary.
What's it called, First Place?
It's called 29 Palms.
29 Palms.
In 2015, we started the First Place Transition Academy there in a 21-unit garden apartment community that we redeveloped in collaboration with the Foundation for Senior Housing.
So it was already there as a garden apartment?
It was a blighted property, Jim.
Got it.
So we took it down to the studs. We reimagined what it could be. We took out a swimming pool. We did all kinds of things to make sure that it could accommodate our needs. And about half the units were for First Place, and we had a sublease on those, and the other half were for seniors. And that's where we started our First Place Transition Academy, and it was a beautiful experience that we could learn from, and that predated the development of what is our flagship property called First Place Phoenix. So here's this 21-unit apartment community, and that was 2015. In 2018, we opened First Place, which is an 81,000 square foot property for a mix of abilities and people with autism. And people live here in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50 something. My being a senior doesn't tell you what I need in my housing, and neither does somebody's disability. So what we're really trying to do is to reimagine, just like Del Webb did 65 years ago, what housing could look like and community could look like, where people have more choice in terms of where they live, how they live, who they live with. And so, when I think about our years with Matt, I never wanted him placed in a classroom, placed in a job, placed in a home. I wanted him to have choice. And that's what our aim is to create more choice and really create a marketplace just like senior housing has. Because you think about, Back then when Del Webb was developing planned communities, there were very few choices. And now today we have different price points and locations and amenities and services and people who can afford and people who can't afford. And that's where we're aiming for this new generation of housing. And those are the components that we're putting in place by the power of examples, not just here in Arizona, but in many places across the country, by creating a common language and a new narrative for even how we talk about it, for creating data points to show what's working and for whom and what needs to work better. And that's how we're building a marketplace, by real infrastructure.
Denise, your comments bring to mind, why doesn't every community that's being developed plan to have a mixed use? Some senior, some special needs?
It's a great question. And why not? And you used a key word in there, Jim, and that's planned community. My clients for many years through my agency led the country, led the Southwest in terms of planned community developments, sought after developments where people were able to age in place, where people were thriving. And it's because of community. It's recognizing that planned communities mean that we're very thoughtful, not only about the hard infrastructure, the streets, the sewage, the sewers, the sidewalks, the lighting, but also that soft infrastructure. Where are people going to meet their neighbors? Where are they going to make their friends? Where are they going to develop that collective memory that builds relationships, that builds community, that builds tradition? And we know from the private sector that people pay a premium for these planned community developments.
Sure do.
And so why wouldn't we do that, to your point, in mixing the populations and truly integrating that kind of opportunity that brings out kindness, maybe a little more patience, accommodations for everyone.
And a little bit more interesting.
And a little more interesting, a little spice it up a little bit. Absolutely. We embrace diversity. We embrace neurodiversity. We embrace all those curb cuts that those of us who don't have a physical disability and may need them for mobility issues, we all benefit from those curb cuts. And so when we reimagine those things that bring people together, where everyone can play on that playground, we actually build stronger, more interesting, and beautiful communities.
Now, two comments. One is, you have me thinking about our work here in New York on Long Island, where we have some of our Smile Farms campuses. Smile Farms campuses are usually built around a greenhouse, a growing operation, and we create work opportunities for people, adults with developmental disabilities, so those who've aged out of school programs. We create work environments where they have something meaningful to do, produce beautiful product, and sell it into the community. And most of the sales will go through, a lot of them be bought by our floral partners in 1-800-Flowers, our terrific retail florists around the country. A lot of restaurants and homeowners will buy some of our outdoor material. And we grow herbs and some food stuff now too. And they are our hospitality community. Our restaurant partners want all of that we can grow. And we also grow peppers at all of our campuses, which then are contributed communally. And we make a hot sauce that's killer. They're called Heat from the Heart hot sauce. And it's the only product that all of our campuses are required to grow. It's peppers, so that we can make the hot sauce. But I've been lobbying a group that's building a senior community not far from our main campus. And I said, why don't you plan your community to include a couple of our group homes, and we'll build greenhouses in there as a Smile Farms campus, and we'll have a couple of dozen people work there every day. Creates wonderful work opportunities or volunteer opportunities for residents of your community. Gives them something interesting to be involved in, talk about. And you can have first dibs on buying our product, our produce, our herbs, our ornamentals. And so that conversation is going on. But now you're arming me with data and experience to make that argument. I thought we were pioneers, and we're not. And that's so good to hear.
Oh, but Jim, you are a pioneer on so many levels. And what you're recognizing as an entrepreneur and corporate leader and a man with an enormous heart is how we bring all those sectors together, how we bring what is traditionally a charitable sector, people with disabilities, together with that private sector, people who really value what that hot sauce is made of and who made that hot sauce, and also value what people with disabilities can add to the fabric of our community and what those jobs and those opportunities every day mean to the people at Smile Farms, the people who are working, the people who are mentoring and supporting those others, and this purpose-filled living. Today, we all know that loneliness is a health crisis, and we feel it everywhere.
Everywhere.
And what you are doing is building community and bringing all of your interests together, including, no doubt, that background of yours in psychology of what do humans need to flourish.
Don't overrate that struggle through college to have a psychology degree.
But that whatever led you to even major in that, I mean, but to understand the human spirit and what people need, that sense of belonging, that value. We don't need more prescriptions. What we need is purpose in our lives. And
Indeed.
And today, when we have an ever-increasing incidence of autism, now 1 in 31, and an unprecedented population of children with autism transitioning to adulthood at 100,000 or 120,000 per year, we're seeing adults in great numbers living beyond their families, and we think about how do we create whole, meaningful, purposeful lives, or help them to create them for when we're no longer here, because that is a looming question for parents like me of who's going to care about them when we're no longer able to do so. And that's
the thought
the community.
When we each put our head on a pillow at night, those of us who are parents or responsible siblings or just caring, thoughtful caregivers, we put our head on a pillow at night and we say, what happens after we're gone? The good news is for me and my family, my brothers and sisters, and it's been answered by the work we do at Smile Farms and our connection with Connection, which is a community of 7 different agencies that our friend Walter Stockton has put together to care for about 8,000 people and 185 group homes and daycare programs and special need programs all over the New York area here. So it's been answered for us. But I meet people every day that have that question in their mind. Just yesterday, I got to speak to a wonderful group of people who were in the investment business, family offices. And I told them that I had just met several people the week before, and I spoke to an audience, and I said, every day I meet people I get the same story. My daughter's 24. She's aged out of programs. She's on the couch. Mm-hmm. The good news is they're successful enough and have enough resources that she can live at home. But she's not doing well. She's getting depressed. She's lonely, big time lonely. Has very declining social interactivity. No work. She just got laid off from a greeting job in a chain store, in a chain restaurant. And what do I do? What do we do with her? And then, of course, the big question is, okay, what do I do for her now? And what happens to her over the long term? And I hear that every day, and I heard it a dozen times yesterday from the people in the audience who came up, and we had this group discussion about how do we deal with this? And you're answering that question. I have to learn so much more about what you're doing, Denise, what you've learned. So let's go back to 2015, 21 units in the Garden apartment complex. So you took it down to the studs. What was the business model there? What is the business model there? Not-for-profit, for-profit, developers? Is it sustainable? Does it make enough money to pay for it? So give us the business side of that.
So it is sustainable. First Place does not have an ownership interest in that property any longer. But we're proud developers, co-developers of that, and similarly situated a second property called Spectrum Courtyard. We are, however, the owners and operators of First Place Phoenix, which is our flagship property and the 81,000 square foot property that houses about 67 people. And that is now a financially, operationally sustainable property, modeling what's required for people to continue to have these positive outcomes and not slide backwards. Because
Hmm.
you have to appreciate that, we've made.
So where do you find the residents?
The residents find us, and they have been finding us from across the country and in some cases around the world, Jim.
Mm.
And what we imagined early on is that we would develop first place branded properties and communities across the country and raise the bar in terms of what we could imagine for living with autism and disabilities, and recognize that that we can do better. And then as we proceeded with our work and our collaborations with communities and leaders across the country, we realized, and you know how valuable those local leaders and local brands, local charitable nonprofits who know their local jurisdictions and philanthropists would be to this whole equation. So we have a theory of change that's really focused on these trailblazers everywhere, individuals, family members, professionals from all sectors, private, public, charitable, nonprofit, working together to build community in their local communities, and then facilitate how we go about that through infrastructure and research and data and advocacy. And that's the work that we're doing through the First Place Global Leadership Institute. There's not one organization or one person who can change the world. It takes all of us to truly build community. And we do that locally, we do that organically. You are doing that masterfully with 1-800-Flowers and Smile. It's a beautiful model. And there are assets in communities, rural, urban, suburban, everywhere. And what we do to leverage those and what we do to model and promote those, it's inspiring. And hopefully more people will be, continue to be inspired by the impact that you're having, by the impact we're having, because that's how we truly change the world and change this perception of.
But the best thing we can do is learn from one another, because it'd be silly for us all to make the same mistakes over and over again.
Amen.
That's why I was so thrilled. I'll be introducing you to another friend. His name is Jason Eichenholz. Jason, really smart technologist, a couple of different technological entrepreneur. He's a if you drive a car and you have sensors on it, he's likely invented that sensor. So he's had several good exits, and he has a son whose name is Jonathan, who is also on the spectrum, also gifted in different areas. He is a savant at repairing iPhones. So they recently got licensed by Apple, which is a difficult thing to achieve, I understand, to be a certified Apple repair facility. And he's building a community in Orlando, Florida, called Jonathan's Landing, that will house 500 people, many of whom will be on the spectrum. He's also working with University of Central Florida to house students there in his new community, Jonathan's Landing, there in Orlando. So there's so many. I'm learning that there's so many talented, gifted, saint-like people like you, and like Walter Stockton on Long Island, and Jason Eichholz, and another man in Orlando, John Rivers, who's building another community there, all around agriculture. It's so nice to discover all the interesting things that you terrific people are doing around the country. The opportunity to learn from one another, build on others' achievements. I get to shine a light on you, wonderful people. So tell me, let's get back to the business side of what you do.
Well, can I just put a thumbs
be.
up? In terms of Jason, I have met Jason and several of his members, and remarkable. And so how we find each other and this collective.
Well, you know how I met Jason. This is going to shock you. Denise, my name is McCann. I'm from Queens. I'm an Irish Catholic heritage kind of kid. And I met Jonathan, of course, standing in line at a bar.
Wow. Well, Jason and I met each other as passionate parents. looking for answers. And he is a remarkable human being, and I'm so glad
He's wonderful.
he is, and I'm so glad you could give him another plug, because he deserves it. And there are many people across the country who we are finding and who we are collaborating with and who are also finding us. And that's why we have launched something called our National Translational Research Collective, which is all about understanding the impacts of these planned community developments, impact not only on the quality of life for the individuals, but also on the community and the economy. And to be able to speak the language of policymakers, of other leaders, to recognize what we're adding to the fabric of community. So I just want to represent to you and to your listeners that this kind of collaboration doesn't just happen, it has to be intentional. So working with Arizona State University, UCLA, Rutgers, Drexel, Western Kentucky University, very important that we team up with these like-minded and differently minded individuals and planned communities, so we understand what's working, what needs to work better, and for whom. And to your point earlier, make fewer mistakes. This idea of transparency is very important. We have so much to learn from each other because there's too much at stake to get it wrong.
Oh, you speak the truth. Do you know of any universities that provide this kind of housing on their campuses?
So there are some universities that are working on integrating housing for people with disabilities on their campuses. Actually, I believe there are several underway right now.
That's wonderful.
And the beauty of that is, or being, close to a university or having collaborations with a university, is the next generation. So I'm proud. I'm turning 65 this year.
Oh, you're a liar.
I am very proud to be able to acknowledge all the young people who we're bringing in also through our fellowships, through our student programs, through our medical selectives for medical students, to make sure that we also help not only bring along that next generation, but entice them to use their skills and innovation to help us continue with this progress.
Well, at Smile Farms, we recently added a new board member couple. Well, one of them, his name is Adam Frazier, and he runs a big real estate REIT that was a distressed REIT. He took over a couple of years ago and has done a terrific job of turning it around. But we were just in conversation recently about how do we do something like this. He will be tickled to listen to your interview here, your discussion here, and to learn from you. So what do you have in the works right now?
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned the REIT because but just before I left the Del Webb Corporation, that was one of my projects, was the creating this, helping the corporation create their roadshow for their real estate investment trust. And I've always imagined what we could do with a real estate impact fund that had multiple rates of return. Yes, economic, but certainly the social impact, the legacy building. So I can hardly wait to be introduced to one of your many friends, Jim.
Oh, you will be.
We believe that is how we'll actually be able to move along this real estate momentum and this marketplace, because finance is one of the largest things standing in the way of more innovative.
Yet there are so many families who could be, quote unquote, investing for the benefit of the greater community and for their own. I think that there's an unlock here that can happen.
Absolutely. And to your earlier point also, in terms of, what do people do all day, and putting them to, having them develop their skills and their confidence, their competence. They could stay at Smile Farms for many years. They could also move on to their next job.
And we've just gotten into that in the last couple of years. We've been finding opportunities for people when some people, the majority will never leave our facilities to go work in the private community. We recognize that. That's just a reality. But for those who can, it's so rewarding to see, particularly in the hospitality sector. We have a couple of restaurant partners. We have a restaurant partner, a fellow's become a friend and is just a terrific guy. He's one of the great chefs and restaurateurs of all time. You've seen him Iron Chef, I think it's called, for almost 20 years now. Tom Colicchio, who owns and runs one of the best restaurants in New York called Craft on East 19th Street. And he's got 4 or 5 of our guys working in his place now. And they've just done well, and they're flourishing, and they become part of that community that Tom has there. It's just great to see people give out. We have a young man on Long Island, Jamie Bonanno, who runs about a dozen different restaurants now, who's been long working. He'll take it. He has all these young people work for him in the restaurants, and so when they come to work for him, he creates a day, and they come over to one of our greenhouses, and they get their hands in the soil with our guys. And they plant, we give them dedicated beds to plant their herbs and the different things they're going to use in the kitchen, behind the bar. And so they get to meet our people. Now they have something to talk about when they're putting mint in a drink for a special kind of cocktail. Now they're telling their patrons, their friends across the bar, I was involved in growing this mint. We did it with Smile Farms. We have these wonderful people over there. I was over there. I had my hands in the soil. We had a great day. We had lunch together. They're wonderful. And it creates community. It creates something to talk about. You're not just talking about, what's going on in the golf tournament this weekend or what's going on socially in the community. You're talking about who else is in the community and what else you're doing. It's just a wonderful, fortuitous circle of interested and caring people. So,
and what you do so masterfully also is the storytelling. It's one thing for us to have data, and that's really important for lots of reasons and trends and data points. But there's some things that you just can't measure, and being able to tell the story, being able to have these models and have these local experiences, those are forever things that people don't forget.
Well, I'll tell you one that I just talked about last night. There was a fellow, we'll call him Jose for this reason, never had a job. He's in his late 20s, lives alone with his mom, and he started working for us in one of our Smile Farms campuses in Manhattan, which, because of some real estate development, we had to shut down for a while. But he got a job working with Tom Colicchio at Craft, and Tom tells us he was the world's greatest glass polisher. And he did that for a few years. And Tom has a big team there, and it's a really, really high-end food and restaurant. And they have a team meeting right before the dinner rush begins. And the chef talks about what's on the menu that night, and there's some tastings going on. The whole team gathers in the front of the restaurant, 50, 60 people. The chefs, the dishwashers, the captains, the waiters, the bus people, bartenders, at all. And so Jose was that night promoted after 3 years of being the world's greatest glass polisher to work on the food prep line. No one in the restaurant on that team, that 50, 60 people, had ever heard Jose speak. He always had a smile on. He loved his job. To see this 6'1" fellow jump up and down, clapping his hands when he first got the job as a glass polisher. His mom described this scene to us about she had never seen him so happy when he came home and told her that he had this job working at Craft as a glass polisher. Well, that night, 50 people there, 50 plus people there, and they announced that Jose is going to be on the food line that night. Jose spoke to the whole group. First time any of them had heard him speak, and he told them how it was the single greatest day of his life.
Oh.
And Tom said there wasn't a dry eye in the house, and he's very much part of that community that feels a lot like a family. Mm-hmm. And so that's because Tom gave him a chance, and his team embraced him, and he's doing well, and I'm sure his skills are developing, and it's a wonderful thing to watch, witness, and pay tribute to Tom and the team at Kraft to be open to that idea and make an opportunity and make Jose and his mom happier than they could ever imagine being.
Everybody can do something. That's a beautiful story, and to think that you can open a door for somebody. You can give someone an opportunity for a chance to succeed. You can have a little more patience in line at the grocery store when someone's trying to make the right change. There's so much we can do as a community to build in our awareness and our kindness and open more doors for more people. And that's what we aim to do, not just in the housing space, as I've mentioned, but also in the employment and the healthcare space and in policy spaces, because there's a lot of policy that stands in the way of us being able to really propel this marketplace of options. And so as charitable nonprofits, when we when we move forward with this, this investment by foundations and philanthropists to test the limits and be more creative and be more innovative, and then capture that data. We can go over to our policy officials to say, look what we can do to be innovative, and then together with that policy, incenting private sectors to build in that way and create the kind of capacity that we need to really create and build momentum around the marketplace, because charitable nonprofits and government can't do it alone. It takes all of us.
We have to find business models that people want to invest in because it's to their personal financial benefit. And yes, it can be for a community benefit too, but if it's tougher. You just touched on so many things that are important there, Denise, and I want to come back to that. This is a community that has no voice. It's a constituency that has no voice. What I mean by that is state legislatures matter a great deal to us, and they never think of us as a voting bloc. How can we change that?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because last year we launched an initiative called Vote the Spectrum. As a charitable nonprofit, we have the opportunity, the right, and the privilege to engage people in education and also registration. And when you think about the number of people transitioning from childhood to adulthood, many of those individuals have the right to vote and need to know that. And so last year, we created Vote the Spectrum. And when you think about it, think about the spectrum of disabilities, the spectrum of autism, and also that spectrum between red and blue. And when we get it right in the middle, we get it right for everyone, Jim.
You are good.
And so last year we hosted
the spectrum between red and blue. I love that.
Absolutely. And so last year we hosted several Spark the Spectrum events here in Arizona.
Spark the Spectrum.
Absolutely.
You are a marketer.
With Republicans and Democrats and independents, we filmed 60 leaders throughout our community speaking to this opportunity of what we can do. It's not just the individuals with disabilities and with autism. It's their parents, it's their teachers, it's their their employers, it's their their medical teams. There's so much we can do to get it right, but we have to register to vote. We have to be part of the process. What we need to create healthy communities is a healthy democracy, and we need to make sure that whoever is elected have the backs of the people we care about and we love the most. And this year, wait a minute, we got Vote the Spectrum 2.0, and we'll be introducing that at our First Place Global Leadership Institute Symposium, October 15th through the 17th. This is our 14th symposium. We have brought leaders together from nearly every state across the U.S.
Where do you do that?
15 countries around the world, here in Phoenix and also online.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Jim, we'd love to have you.
It sounds like a wonderful event. Tell me, you back to the units you've developed, the properties you developed. You developed them as a not-for-profit, you said?
Yes.
Tell us about the business of it, the mechanics of it. Talk about that 21 unit. Is there any work opportunity for people who live there? How do you think about that so that they can be self-sustaining, be part of a community, be part of the economic environment?
For all the properties, Jim, and for the people who live here, it's very important that they, that they have purposeful, meaningful lives. They're given a chance to succeed. And we've been working on that and building a supportive community since the earliest days of forming the Southwest Autism and Research and Resource Center in 1997. Today, Phoenix is known as the most autism-friendly city in the world, according to PBS NewsHour. And
no doubt in large part to your efforts.
It's not just one person, but...
Obviously, but...
Yes, there are a lot of people who have been involved, and I've had the privilege of working with them and opening doors in terms of employment. and recognizing not only the responsibility of the employer to create the accommodations, but to help individuals to be more prepared for that workplace, and also those job coaches. The job coaches that receive funding from vocational rehab, from federal government, from state government. And in Arizona, as an example, and many states across the country, there's no requirement for training for a job coach through vocational rehab. Well, that's a problem. You think about, if there's no training, what kind of results are we going to get? And so you can answer that one for yourself. So that is a particular area of focus for us through our Be Open, Be Ready initiative. It's also a particular focus for us in our health and wellness initiatives. It's not just up to the physicians and healthcare professionals to help us stay healthy. We have a responsibility too, as do the families and caregivers and support individuals. And so what we do is a lot of training and education. So our work, Jim, is not tied to one specific property. We are developing community, because once we have that community, then there will also be more opportunities for housing to emerge, and not just the housing we develop ourselves, but the housing the private sector develops, the housing the other nonprofits develop. And that's why we're very involved with our business community and our housing community as we do our best to try to tackle this housing crisis here in Arizona and across the country. We want to be present as people representing those with autism and intellectual and developmental disabilities, not only with our voices, but with data and with models that work. And so that's part of this advocacy too, is to demonstrate what's possible and try to open more doors.
Tell me a little bit as we wrap up here for the moment, because this is not going to be the last time we speak, Denise. You're stuck now. Tell me, what do you still have your primary business in effect?
I do, and about a decade ago, I appointed smartly a president of my marketing and communications firm. She's been with me for more than 20 years. And so that has continued. And I'll pick up a few clients during a given year based on interest and passion around that. But truly, my everyday passion is around this place and around what we do to create and really fuel a marketplace of options.
And tell me about this guy, Rob, that you put up with now for 41 years. What does he do?
Well, he's an attorney by background, political consultant too. And we actually met working on then Governor Bruce Babbitt's reelection campaign back in the early 80s. He's from New York, and
can't hold that against him.
Can't hold that against him. And we met at campaign headquarters when I was just finishing up my senior year at ASU. And I knew then I needed to spend more time at campaign headquarters. So that was actually 43 years ago. Rob looks out for the whole family and our whole well-being in terms of making sure that we keep it real, have fun, value our kids and now 2 grandkids, ages 4 and 7.
Wow. That's terrific.
It is. And he's
a special club, this grandparents club, isn't
it? Don't they say it's the best gift your kids can give?
Well, we all know that if we knew how good this was going to be, we might have been nicer to our kids.
So it's, So.
And tell me about Matthew, 34 years old.
34 years old. And
where does he live? What's he doing?
He's living beyond what we thought he could do. He moved into First Place just under 7 years ago. Prior to that, he had never answered the door and never answered a phone. He wouldn't have known where to really go for help. Today, he's living in a 1-bedroom apartment. He works in the community. He volunteers. He has very full days, learning, living. The more things that are on his list that he gets to check off the list, the happier he is. He's a...
And how many letters does he have to give me as a handicap in Scrabble?
He'd have to give you quite a few, but let me just tell you, he's a very collaborative player, and he plays on his iPad. He'll play on a board too, but on his iPad, Jim, if you ever get stuck, he's happy to take your turn. But no doubt, he's going to do whatever he can to just make sure that score is tied as many times as possible.
And your daughter's nearby?
Our daughter's in San Diego, and she's a rabbi.
No kidding.
No kidding. And she lives her tikkun olam, which is in Judaism, as you may know, a principle of of repairing the world. And it's what each of us can do to make this world a little bit better. And we all need to do more today to make this world a little bit and a lot better. And so that's, when we continue to follow our North Stars and the people that we love, it grounds us in remarkable ways. And so that's what we do.
The good news is we're learning to live longer and live better. And so you're going to be around a real long time to continue to make a difference in all the communities that you serve. And that's a wonderful thing. And we look forward to building a relationship with you, learning from you, collaborating with you, and celebrating these wonderful victories you created, and tapping into your ability to create great, spark the spectrum, vote the spectrum 2.0, smile place. This is an exciting conversation. I'm so turned on by all the things that you do and the accomplishment you have. I look forward to building a relationship with you, Denise, and celebrating all that you've achieved and all that you're going to help do and will continue to help others to achieve. So I'm so glad we met you. I'm so glad we've had this conversation. I can't wait to share this with, I have a dozen people in mind that I've made notes about that. I say, you'll have to give this an early listen because Denise Resnik is terrific.
Thank you so much, Jim, for the opportunity. And I look forward to continuing this conversation with you too.
Thanks, Denise.